Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the bright white halls of the UHMS Nightingale's Grace. Her soft shoes made no sound on the clean metal floors. Around her, nurses and doctors moved quickly but quietly between rooms. The hospital ship was huge, almost 2 miles long, with red crosses painted on every side. Everyone in the galaxy knew what those red crosses meant. They meant safety. They meant help. They meant no fighting was allowed here. Elena stopped at room 847. Inside, a young Zephyrian soldier lay on a medical bed. His insect-like body was covered in bandages. The Zephyrians looked like giant praying mantises, but Elena had learned they were gentle people who only fought because they had to. This one was barely old enough to hold a weapon. "How are you feeling today, Crix?" Elena asked in simple galactic standard. The translator box on her collar would help if needed. The young alien's compound eyes focused on her. "Better, Dr. Human Elena. The pain medicine works well. When can I go home?" Elena checked his chart on her tablet. 2 more days. Your wing will be strong again soon." Crix made a chittering sound that meant happiness in his language. "Thank you. My hive mother will be so glad. She thought I would never fly again." Elena smiled and patted his arm carefully. Zephyrian skin was harder than human skin, but she had learned to be gentle anyway. "You will fly again. I promise." She moved to the next room. Here, 3 human soldiers shared space with 2 reptilian hegemony fighters. A month ago, these same groups had been shooting at each other on the planet Kepler-7. Now they played cards together while their wounds healed. Dr. V called out Sergeant Martinez, a human with a missing leg. "Tell Rodriguez here that aces beat kings in poker. These hegemony guys are learning the game, but Rodriguez is trying to cheat them." Elena laughed. "Aces do beat kings, Rodriguez. Play fair." One of the hegemony soldiers, who looked like a 7-foot-tall lizard, spoke in broken galactic standard. "Human games are strange, but fun. We play more when wounds heal. Yes, Dr. Female?" "Yes, Scarl. You can play all the poker you want when you get better." Elena made notes on her tablet. All 5 soldiers in this room would be walking again within the week. That made her happy. She continued her rounds. The Nightingale's Grace held 47,000 beings from 19 different species. Some were soldiers. Some were civilians caught in fighting. Some were refugees running from war zones. Elena and her team of 8,000 doctors and nurses treated them all the same. It did not matter what species they were. It did not matter which side they fought for. If someone was hurt, the humans who had helped them heal. Captain Torres found Elena in the main medical bay 2 hours later. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been commanding hospital ships for 15 years. Before that, he had been a fighter pilot. Elena often wondered how someone could go from making war to saving lives. But Torres was the best hospital ship captain in the human fleet. "Elena, we have a situation," Torres said quietly. Long-range sensors picked up a distress signal. Hegemony frigate, badly damaged, drifting in space about 6 hours from here. Elena looked up from the medical supplies she was counting. "How many aboard?" "Unknown. The signal is weak. Could be anywhere from 50 to 300 crew members." Torres paused. "I know what you're thinking. We're already at full capacity. But we don't leave people to die in space," Elena finished. "That's not who we are." Torres nodded. "That's what I told the bridge crew when they asked. Some of them are worried. A damaged hegemony ship in this sector could be a trap. The war hasn't been going well for them lately. They might be getting desperate." Elena set down her tablet. "Captain, in 2 years we have saved over 40,000 lives. Humans, Zephyrians, hegemony, even some of those crystal beings from the outer rim. Not once has anyone attacked a hospital ship. Not once. The galactic conventions are clear. Medical ships are neutral, or off limits. I know, Torres said. And you're right. We have to respond. I just wanted to make sure you and your staff are ready for a big influx of patients. If that frigate is as damaged as the signal suggests, we might get some really bad cases. Elena was already moving toward the medical prep stations. I'll alert all departments. How long until we reach them? 5 hours and 43 minutes at current speed. Elena started making calls on her communicator. Within minutes, the entire medical staff of the Nightingale's Grace was preparing for emergency operations. Operating rooms were cleared and cleaned. Blood banks were organized by species type. The pharmaceutical department began mixing pain, medications that would work on hegemony biology. Elena found herself thinking about her first day aboard a hospital ship. She had been fresh out of medical school on Earth, young and eager to help people. Her first patient had been a hegemony prisoner of war who had lost both arms in a plasma blast. She remembered being nervous. The hegemony were humanity's enemies. They had killed millions of humans in this war. But when she looked at that wounded soldier, all she saw was someone in pain who needed help. She spent 16 hours in surgery, rebuilding his arms with cybernetic implants. When he woke up and could move his fingers again, he cried. Elena learned that day that tears looked the same whether they came from human eyes or hegemony eyes. The next few hours passed quickly. The Nightingale's Grace changed course toward the distress signal. Elena walked through the ship, checking on patients and making sure her staff was ready. In the children's ward, young beings from 6 different species played together with toys donated by families across human space. In the rehabilitation center, former enemies worked together, doing physical therapy exercises. This was what Elena loved most about hospital ships. Here, there was no war. There were no enemies. There were only patients who needed care and medical staff who provided it. The Nightingale's Grace was like a tiny island of peace floating through the darkness of space. As they got closer to the damaged frigate, Elena joined Captain Torres on the bridge. Through the main view screen, they could see the hegemony ship tumbling slowly through space. Hull breaches were visible along its side. Atmosphere leaked out in frozen streams that sparkled in the starlight. Sensors show 78 life signs. Aboard, reported the scanning officer. Some are very weak. Torres opened a communication channel. Hegemony vessel, this is Captain Torres of the hospital ship Nightingale's Grace. We are responding to your distress call. Prepare to receive medical assistance. A crackling voice answered in accented galactic standard. Human ship, this is Commander Vash of the frigate Talonstrike. We have many wounded. Our medical bay was destroyed. We we need help. Elena stepped forward. Commander Vash, this is Dr. Vasquez. We're preparing to take your wounded aboard for treatment. How? Many need immediate surgery? 37 are critical. Dr. Human, my ship fought yours at Rigel last month. Why do you help us? Elena looked at Torres, who nodded. Because that's what we do, Commander. Prepare your wounded for transport. We'll have them all aboard within 2 hours. As the transport shuttles launched from the Nightingale's Grace, Elena felt the same sense of purpose she always felt when helping those in need. This was why she became a doctor. This was why humanity built hospital ships instead of just more weapons. In a galaxy full of war and hatred, someone had to choose to heal instead of hurt. She had no way of knowing that this choice, this act of compassion, would soon bring darkness to the stars. The first shuttle from the damaged hegemony frigate docked with the Nightingale's Grace 3 hours later. Elena waited in the shuttle bay with 20 nurses and 6 emergency medical teams. The bay doors opened with a soft hiss, and wounded Hegemony soldiers began coming out on stretchers. Elena had seen many wounded beings in her 2 years on hospital ships, but these cases were worse than usual. Burns covered most of their reptilian skin. Some had lost limbs. Others struggled to breathe through damaged lungs. The worst cases went straight to surgery. The others went to the intensive care wards. "Doctor, this one is barely alive," called Nurse Patterson. She was wheeling a young hegemony female toward the elevator. The soldier's breathing was weak, and her pulse was failing. Elena ran alongside the stretcher. "Get her to OR7. I'll prep for emergency surgery." She looked down at the wounded soldier. Despite the burns and injuries, Elena could see she was very young. Maybe 19 or 20 in human years. As they rushed through the halls, other patients watched from their rooms. The human soldiers who had been playing cards earlier stood at their doorway. Sergeant Martinez balanced on his crutches. "Doc, you need any help?" he asked. "I know basic field medicine." "Thank you, but stay in your room and rest. Your leg needs time to heal." Elena appreciated his offer, but rules were rules. Patients needed to focus on getting better. The surgery took 4 hours. Elena and her team replaced damaged organs, repaired torn blood vessels, and treated severe burns. When the young hegemony soldier finally opened her eyes, Elena was checking her vital signs. "Where ... where am I?" The soldier whispered in Galactic Standard. "You're safe. You're aboard a human hospital ship. My name is Dr. Vasquez." Elena spoke softly and kept her movements slow. Many hegemony patients were frightened when they first woke up on a human ship. The young soldier tried to sit up and fell back with a gasp of pain. "Humans, but we are enemies. Why do you help me?" Elena had answered this question many times before. "Because you're hurt, and we're doctors. That's all that matters here." Tears began running down the soldier's scaled cheeks. "My name is Sasha. I was a communications officer on the Talon strike. The explosion killed most of my unit. I thought I would die in space." "You're not going to die, Sasha. You're going to heal and go home to your family." Elena checked the monitors around the bed. Everything looked good. "Rest now. The pain medication will help you sleep." Elena left Sasha's room and went to check on the other new patients. Commander Vash, the captain of the damaged frigate, was in room 1205. He had a broken leg and some internal injuries, but nothing life-threatening. When Elena entered his room, he was staring out the window at the stars. "Commander, how are you feeling?" Elena asked. Vash turned to look at her. He was older than most hegemony soldiers, with scars covering his arms and neck. "Dr. Human, I must ask you something. Why does your species do this? Why do you save your enemies?" Elena sat down in the chair next to his bed. This was not a medical question, but she could see he really wanted to understand. "Because we believe all life has value. It doesn't matter what species someone is or what uniform they wear. When someone is hurt, we help them. But we have killed many humans. I myself have destroyed 3 human ships. Why do you not hate us?" Elena thought about her answer carefully. Some humans do hate the hegemony. War makes people angry and afraid. But hatred doesn't heal wounds or save lives. We chose to build hospital ships instead of more weapons because we believe healing is better than hurting. Vash was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke again. "You are a strange species, humans. In all my years of war, I have never seen enemies care for each other like this." "Maybe that's why this war needs to end," Elena said. "There's been enough death on all sides." Elena continued her rounds. The medical bays were now completely full. 78 hegemony soldiers joined, the thousands of other patients aboard the Nightingale's Grace, The human medical staff worked without complaint, treating everyone equally. In the children's ward, a young hegemony boy played games with human and Zephyrian children. None of them cared about the war. They just wanted to have fun. Captain Torres found Elena in the medical supply room that evening. She was counting bandages and updating inventory lists. The work never stopped on a hospital ship. The Talon strike is beyond repair, Torres reported. We'll have to take all the survivors back to the nearest neutral station for repatriation. That's Kepler Station, about 8 days from here. Elena nodded. The wounded will need that time to heal anyway. Some of them won't be ready to travel for at least a week. There's something else, Torres said. His voice sounded worried. Long-range communications picked up some chatter. Hegemony fleet movements in this sector. They might be looking for their missing frigate. Will that be a problem? Elena asked. Hospital ships are neutral. They can't attack us under Galactic law, I know. But with the war going badly for them, some hegemony commanders might be getting desperate. Desperate people sometimes do stupid things. Elena set down her tablet. Captain, we've been doing this for 2 years. No one has ever attacked a hospital ship. The Red Crosses mean something to every civilized species in the galaxy. Torres looked out the small window at the stars. I hope you're right, Elena. I really do. 2 days later, Elena was in surgery room 3, replacing a damaged heart valve when the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and a recorded voice announced, "All stations alert status." This is not a drill. Elena looked up at her surgical team. Keep working. Someone needs this valve or they'll die. Captain Torres will handle whatever is happening. But even as she said it, Elena felt worried. Alert status meant possible danger. Hospital ships almost never went to alert status. The surgery took another hour. When Elena finally left the operating room, Nurse Patterson was waiting for her in the hallway. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. Doctor, you need to get to the bridge right now, Patterson said. Elena pulled off her surgical gloves. What's happening? Hegemony battle fleet. They found us. Elena ran through the corridors toward the bridge. Other crew members were moving quickly but calmly. The Nightingale's Grace had practiced emergency procedures many times. Everyone knew their jobs. When Elena reached the bridge, she saw Captain Torres standing at the main view screen. Outside in space, 20 large hegemony warships surrounded the hospital ship. Their weapons were powered up and pointed at the Nightingale's Grace. Captain, what do they want? Elena asked. I don't know yet. They're not responding to our communications. Torres turned to his communications officer. Try again. Make sure they understand we're a medical vessel. Hegemony fleet, this is the hospital ship Nightingale's Grace. The officer spoke into his microphone. We are a medical vessel operating under galactic convention. We have wounded from all species aboard, including your own people. Please respond. 4. Several minutes, there was only silence. Then a harsh voice came through the speakers. Human medical ship. This is Admiral Krexthal of the Hegemony Third Fleet. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Torres stepped forward. Admiral, we are a hospital ship. We have red crosses clearly displayed. We have 78 of your own wounded aboard receiving medical treatment. We are protected under galactic medical conventions. Admiral Krexthal's voice was cold and angry. Conventions are for the weak. You humans use these hospital ships to spy on our fleets and rescue your own people while claiming neutrality. No more. Elena felt her heart start beating faster. Something was very wrong here. Captain, they can't seriously be thinking of attacking us. Admiral, Torres spoke into the communicator again. I'm sending you our patient manifest. 78 hegemony soldiers, 400 Zephyrian civilians, Over 2,000 human refugees, and thousands of others from 17 different species. This is a medical facility, not a military target. Enough talking, Admiral Krexthul replied. You have 5 minutes to surrender your ship and all personnel. If you refuse, we will destroy you. Elena looked around the bridge. The crew members were staring at their stations in shock. No one could believe what they were hearing. Hospital ships had been safe for over 100 years. The red crosses were sacred to every species in the galaxy. Captain, Elena said quietly, we have to try to evacuate the patients. Torres shook his head. 47,000 beings? Our life pods could maybe hold 5,000. And the hegemony. Ships would just destroy the pods anyway. The communications officer looked up from his station. Captain, I'm getting emergency calls from all over the ship. Patients are scared. Some of the hegemony wounded are trying to contact their fleet to tell them this is really a hospital ship. Put Commander Vash on the main channel, Torres ordered. Moment later, Commander Vash's voice came through the bridge speakers. He was speaking in the hegemony language, but the translators converted his words to Galactic Standard. Admiral Krexthul, this is Commander Vash of the Talon Strike. These humans saved my crew. They are treating our wounded with honor. You cannot attack a medical ship. Admiral Krexthul's reply was filled with anger. You are a fool, Vash. These humans make you weak with their false kindness. Strength is all that? The timer on the bridge screen reached 0. Elena held her breath and waited. For a moment, there was only silence in space. Then the first plasma bolt hit the Nightingale's Grace. The ship shook violently. Emergency lights came on as the main. Power flickered. Elena grabbed onto a support rail to keep from falling. Through the bridge windows, she could see more flashes of light as the hegemony fleet opened fire. Shields down to 60%, reported the tactical officer. They're targeting our engines and life support systems. Captain Torres was speaking rapidly into his communicator. All stations, this is the captain. Hospital ship Nightingales. Grace is under attack by hegemony forces. We are a medical vessel with 47,000 patients and medical staff aboard. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Another series of explosions rocked the ship. Elena could hear alarms going off throughout the vessel. Her communicator started buzzing with emergency calls from the medical bays. Dr. Vasquez, we need you in Surgery Bay 7, pinned Nurse Patterson's voice. The last hit damaged the ceiling and debris, injured several patients. Elena looked at Captain Torres. I have to go help the wounded. Torres nodded grimly. Go. Do what you can. We'll try to keep this ship together as long as possible. Elena ran through corridors filled with smoke and flashing red lights. The ship shook again, and she stumbled, catching herself against a wall. Other crew members were running past her, some carrying medical supplies, others helping patients who had been thrown from their beds. When she reached Surgery Bay 7, Elena saw the damage immediately. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, and metal beams had fallen on to 3 patient beds. 2 Zephyrian refugees and 1 human soldier were trapped underneath. Help me lift this beam, Elena called to 2 orderlies who were standing nearby. Together, they managed to free the human soldier. His leg was broken, but he was alive. Doc, forget about me, the soldier gasped. Help the bug people first. They look worse. Elena was already moving to check on the Zephyrians. One was unconscious, but breathing. The other was awake, but had a piece of metal stuck in his chest. Elena knew that moving it wrong could kill him. Get me a surgical kit and some plasma, she called out. I need to operate right here. As Elena worked to save the wounded Zephyrian, the ship continued to shake from weapon impacts. She tried to focus only on her patient, but she could hear the sounds of destruction all around them. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the terrible sound of hull metal tearing apart. 20 minutes later, she had stabilized the Zephyrian and was working on the unconscious one when her communicator buzzed again. All medical staff, this is the captain. Torres's voice was strained. We've lost main power. Life support is running on backup systems. The hegemony fleet is preparing for a final attack. If you have something to say to your families, record it now. Elena stopped what she was doing. Around her, the other medical staff were looking at each other with fear and sadness. They all knew what Torres was really saying. The Nightingale's grace was going to be destroyed. Elena thought about calling her parents on Earth, but she realized the communication systems were probably damaged. Instead, she looked at the patients around her. Even now, with death approaching, they were all she cared about. Listen to me, she said to the medical staff in the room. We keep working until the end. These people trusted us to take care of them. We don't stop now. The others nodded and went back to treating patients. Elena moved to the next bed, where young Sasha, the hegemony communications officer she had saved 3 days ago, was sitting up and looking scared. Dr. Elena, what is happening? Sasha asked. Why do our ships attack you? Elena sat down next to Sasha's bed. She decided to tell the truth. Your admiral thinks we're spies. He's going to destroy the ship. Sasha's eyes went wide. But that is against all laws. Hospital ships are sacred. No one attacks medical vessels. I know, Elena said softly. Some people forget what's right when they're angry. Sasha started crying. This is my fault. If we had not sent that distress signal, you would not have come to help us. You would be safe. Elena took Sasha's hand. Don't think that way. We came to help because that's who we are. We chose to save your lives. That choice was right, even if this is the result. Another massive explosion shook the ship. This one was different. Elena could hear the sound of atmosphere escaping into space. Hull breach alarms started wailing throughout the medical bay. Emergency bulkheads are sealing, announced the ship's computer. Multiple hull breaches detected. Estimated time to catastrophic failure, 15 minutes. Elena looked around the medical bay. There were over 300 patients in this section. Alone, most were too injured to move. Even if the life pods were working, there was no way to evacuate everyone in 15 minutes. Alana's communicator buzzed one more time. This time, it was a ship-wide announcement from Captain Torres. All crew and passengers of the UHMS Nightingale's Grace, this is Captain Torres. I want you to know that serving with all of you has been the greatest honor of my life. For 2 years, we have saved over 40,000 lives together. We have shown the galaxy that healing is stronger than hatred. We have proven that compassion can exist even in the darkest times of war. Elena could hear explosions getting closer. Emergency lights were flickering as power systems failed throughout the ship. Torres continued his announcement. I am transmitting our final log and patient records on all frequencies. The galaxy needs to know what happened here. They need to know that a hospital ship full of patients from 19 different species was destroyed while trying to save lives. Elena stood up and walked to the intercom system in the medical bay. She pressed the button to speak to the whole ship. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I want everyone to know that you are all heroes. Patients, medical staff, ship crew, everyone. You showed that different species can live together in peace. You showed that enemies can become friends when they focus on healing instead of hurting. Around the medical bay, patients and staff were listening to her words. Humans, Zephyrians, hegemony soldiers, and beings from a dozen other species all faced their final moments together. The beings who are attacking us think that kindness is weakness, Elena continued. They think that saving lives makes us soft. They are wrong. Our compassion is our strength. Our mercy is our power. They can destroy this ship, but they cannot destroy what we represent. The ship shook one final time. This explosion was much larger than the others. Elena could see through the medical bay windows that sections of the ship were breaking apart. Debris floated past the windows, glowing from the heat of plasma fire. Elena thought about her first day aboard a hospital ship, when she helped rebuild the arms of a wounded hegemony soldier. She thought about all the lives saved, all the families reunited, all the enemies who became friends in the healing wards of medical vessels. She thought about Admiral Krexthil, somewhere out there in the darkness, watching a hospital ship die. She wondered if he felt proud of his victory, or if somewhere deep inside, he knew he had crossed a line that should never be crossed. The lights went out in the medical bay. Emergency power was failing throughout the ship. Elena could hear the sound of metal groaning as the ship's structure began to collapse. She sat down next to Sasha's bed and took the young hegemony soldier's hand. "I'm scared," Sasha whispered. "So am I," Elena replied. "But we're not alone. We're all here together." In the darkness, Elena could hear voices from all over the medical bay, different species speaking different languages, but all saying the same things. "Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Goodbye." Elena closed her eyes and thought about Earth. She thought about the blue oceans and green forests where humanity first learned to heal instead of hurt. She thought about the hospitals and medical schools where young humans learned that every life has value. Somewhere far away on Earth, people were living normal lives. They had no idea that in the darkness of space, a hospital ship was dying. They had no idea that 47,000 beings were about to become martyrs for the cause of compassion. But Elena knew that someday, somehow, Earth would learn what happened to the Nightingale's grace. And when they did, the galaxy would never be the same. The final explosion came without warning. Elena felt the ship breaking apart around her, felt the artificial gravity failing, felt the last of the atmosphere rushing out into space. In her final moments, she held tight to Sasha's hand and whispered a promise into the void. "They will remember us. They will remember what we stood for. And they will make sure this never happens again." Then there was only silence in the darkness between the stars. The news reached Earth 3 days later. An automated message pod from the Nightingale's Grace had escaped the destruction and jumped through hyperspace, carrying Captain Torres's final transmission. When it arrived at Sol Station, the duty officer who received it thought there had been a mistake. Hospital ships didn't get destroyed. It was impossible. It was against every law of civilized warfare, but the message was real. The recording was clear. 47,000 beings, including 8,000 human medical personnel, had been murdered while trying to save lives. The pod also carried the complete patient records, showing exactly who had been aboard the ship when it died. Within 6 hours, the news was on every communication network in human space. Videos of the attack spread across billions of screens. People watched Admiral Krexthil's fleet destroy a clearly marked hospital ship. They heard Dr. Elena Vasquez's final words about compassion and strength. They saw the red crosses being torn apart by plasma fire. President Sarah Chun sat in her office in Geneva, watching the recordings for the 5th time. She was not related to Admiral Sarah Chun of the Seoul Defense Fleet, but they shared the same cold anger as they watched innocent people die. Around the table sat the other members of the Terran Federation Council. None of them spoke for a long time. "How many humans are demanding war?" asked Defense Minister Park. "All of them," replied Communications Director Rodriguez. "Every single poll shows the same thing. 97% support immediate military action. The other 3% haven't seen the videos yet." President Chun turned off the display, showing the destruction of the Nightingale's Grace. "What about our allies? The Zephyrians, the Centauri Republic, the others?" "They're terrified," said Foreign Minister Okafor. Not of the hegemony, of us. They've never seen humans this angry before. Some of them are asking if we're going to declare total war. President Chun was quiet for several minutes. She thought about Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had spent 2 years saving lives from 19 different species. She thought about Captain Torres, who had chosen to rescue enemies instead of leaving them to die in space. She thought about the children in the hospital ship's pediatric ward. "Get me Admiral Chun," President Chun said finally, "and contact the Strategic Planning Division. Tell them I want Option Omega on my desk in 2 hours." Defense Minister Park looked up sharply. "Madam President, Option Omega is total war authorization. Are you sure?" "They attacked a hospital ship, Minister. They murdered doctors and children and wounded soldiers under medical protection. Yes, I'm sure." 2 hours later, Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the Underground Strategic Command Center beneath the Swiss Alps. She had been expecting this call ever since the news broke. Around her, dozens of officers worked at computer stations that controlled the entire human military across 50 star systems. "Admiral," President Chun's image appeared on the main screen. "I'm authorizing Option Omega, effective immediately. You have complete authority to use any means necessary to end this war." Admiral Chun nodded. She had hoped this day would never come, but she had spent 20 years preparing for it anyway. "Understood, Madam President. How much of our true strength am I authorized to reveal?" "All of it, Admiral. Show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of when we stop holding back." Admiral Chun turned to her staff officers. "Activate all strategic reserve fleets. Bring the outer system platforms online. Contact the black sites and tell them to begin full production. And get me a direct line to Admiral Martinez aboard the Retribution." Across human space, things began moving that had been hidden for decades. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, rock formations that looked natural suddenly opened up to reveal massive shipyards. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels shed their fake hull plating and showed their true nature as destroyers. And cruisers. On Luna, beneath the surface mining colonies, weapons factories that had been building farming equipment switched to their real purpose. The same thing happened on Europa, Titan, and hidden bases in the York Cloud. Within hours, the human war machine was operating at full capacity for the first time in over a century. Admiral Chun's first target was the hegemony supply lines. She sent stealth ships to every major shipping route the enemy used. But these weren't normal attacks. The human ships didn't just destroy the supply convoys. They made them disappear completely. The hegemony commanders noticed the pattern after a week. 37 supply fleets had simply vanished. No distress calls, no debris fields, no survivors. The ships were there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. Admiral Crexthill, the commander who had destroyed the Nightingale's Grace, was beginning to feel worried. He had expected the humans to attack his fleet directly, seeking revenge. Instead, they seemed to be attacking everywhere, except where he was. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from 17 different sectors. Our supply lines are being cut, but our scouts can't find any human fleets." Crexthill studied the tactical display. Red marks showed where hegemony ships had disappeared. The pattern made no sense. How could the humans be attacking in so many places at once? "Sir," another officer spoke up nervously, "intelligence reports that human ship production has increased by 800% in the last 2 weeks. They seem to have shipyards we didn't know about." Crexthill felt a cold sensation in his stomach. 800%? How is that possible? "We don't know, sir. Some of our spies are reporting that the humans have been hiding their true industrial capacity for decades. The ships we've been fighting might only be a small part of their real fleet. On the planet Kepler 5, a hegemony military base went offline. In the middle of the night, when morning came, the entire facility was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The buildings, the landing pads, the weapons storage, everything had been disassembled down to the molecular level. In place of the base was a perfect square of empty ground and a single message written in the dirt. You attacked a hospital ship. Similar incidents happened across hegemony space. Military bases didn't explode or burn. They simply ceased to exist. Defense satellites vanished from orbit. Command centers were found empty, with all equipment removed and all personnel missing. The missing soldiers were later found on neutral planets, unconscious but unharmed, with no memory of how they got there. The hegemony commanders tried to fight back, but they couldn't find targets. Human fleets appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They would attack a hegemony position, destroy everything military, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. But they never harmed civilians or medical facilities. Admiral Krexthul received new orders to retreat to the core hegemony worlds and establish defensive positions. But when his fleet tried to jump to hyperspace, nothing happened. Their navigation computers showed error messages they had never seen before. "Sir," his navigation officer said with a shaking voice, "our hyperspace drives aren't working." None of them. It's like something is blocking our jump calculations. Across the galaxy, every hegemony ship found itself trapped in normal space. They could use their regular engines, but they couldn't jump to hyperspace. The humans had somehow cut off their ability to travel between star systems quickly. Meanwhile, human fleets moved freely, appearing wherever they wanted. It became clear that humanity had developed technology far beyond what they had shown during the war. Stealth systems that made ships completely invisible. Weapons that could dismantle matter at the atomic level. Computer viruses that could shut down enemy systems from light years away. The Zephyrian Council called an emergency meeting with human representatives. Ambassador Jackson met with the insectoid leaders in their crystal palace on Zephyr Prime. "Ambassador Jackson," spoke High Counselor Isaac, "your species frightens us. This technology you are using, this level of warfare, we have never seen anything like it. How long have you been hiding these capabilities?" Jackson sat quietly for a moment before answering. "Since we first made contact with other species, we've been hiding about 90% of our military strength. We wanted to be seen as equals, not threats. We wanted to build friendships, not fear. But why hide so much? Because we know what we're capable of when we're really angry. Humans evolved on a death world, Counselor. We survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and thousands of wars among ourselves. When we finally got to space, we decided to use our skills for exploration and science instead of conquest." Jackson activated a holographic display showing human space. "Every mining facility you've seen is actually a shipyard. Every research station is a weapons laboratory. Every colony ship carries enough firepower to destroy a moon. We've been preparing for a war we hoped would never come." High Counselor Zach's compound eyes focused on the display. "And now that war has come? Now you're seeing what humans do when someone attacks our doctors and children. The hegemony crossed a line that should never be crossed. They're going to learn why hospital ships were safe for 100 years, because everyone was afraid of. What would happen if they attacked one?" Back in hegemony space, Admiral Krexthul was receiving reports that made no sense. 3 entire star systems had gone dark, not destroyed. Admiral Krexthul stared at the human ships surrounding his fleet. His hands shook as he reached for the communications console. He had spent his entire life believing that the hegemony was the strongest military force in the galaxy. Now he understood how wrong he had been. "This is Admiral Krexthul," He spoke into the microphone. I surrender my fleet to human forces. Within minutes, human boarding parties were moving through every hegemony ship, but they didn't come as conquerors. They came as police officers, carrying arrest warrants and lists of charges. Every hegemony officer who had participated in attacking the hospital ship was taken into custody for war crimes. Krexthil himself was brought aboard Admiral Chun's flagship, the Retribution. The human admiral was waiting for him in a conference room that looked more like a courtroom than a military meeting space. Admiral Krexthil, Admiral Chun said as two human guards brought him in. You are under arrest for the murder of 47,000 non-combatants, violation of medical neutrality laws, and crimes against sentient beings. Krexthil had expected to be shot or thrown into a prison cell. Instead, he was given a chair and a glass of water. A human lawyer sat across from him, ready to explain his rights under galactic law. I don't understand, Krexthil said. Your people want revenge. Why do you follow legal procedures? Admiral Chun sat down across from him. Because we're not you, Admiral. We don't abandon our principles when we're angry. Dr. Elena Vasquez died believing that every life has value. We're not going to dishonor her memory by becoming murderers ourselves. The trial took place on the neutral station at Kepler Prime, with judges from 7 different species. The evidence was overwhelming. The humans presented recordings of the attack, patient manifests proving the ship's medical status, and testimony from survivors who had been found in escape pods. Commander Vosh, the hegemony officer whose ship had been rescued by the Nightingale's grace, testified against his own admiral. The humans saved my crew's lives, he said to the court. They treated our wounded with honor and kindness. Admiral Krexthil destroyed a ship full of healers and patients. He brought shame to the hegemony military. The trial lasted 3 weeks. When it ended, Admiral Krexthil was sentenced to life in prison. But that was not the end of the human response to the hospital ship attack. Admiral Chun had been busy while the trial proceeded. Human fleets had surrounded every major hegemony world, but they hadn't attacked the planets. Instead, they had done something much more effective. They had shut down all technology on the surface. On Hegemony Prime, the capital world of the Coalition, people woke up one morning to find that nothing electronic worked. No computers, no communication devices, no vehicles, no power plants. The humans had used some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon that disabled every piece of technology on the planet without harming any living beings. The hegemony government tried to restore power, but every time they brought a system online, it would shut down again within minutes. It became clear that the humans were actively preventing any technology from working on hegemony. Worlds. President Vexstar of the Hegemony Coalition sent a message to Earth using an old radio transmitter from their pre-space era. What do you want from us? The message asked. Name your terms. President Chun's response was broadcast across the galaxy. We want justice for the Nightingale's grace. We want the hegemony government to dissolve and allow its member species to choose their own futures. We want every military leader who supported attacking medical ships to face trial. And we want guarantees that this will never happen again. The hegemony leadership refused. They called the human demands unreasonable and threatened to fight until the last hegemony soldier was dead. The humans' response was swift and terrible. They didn't attack hegemony military forces or civilian populations. Instead, they attacked the government itself. Every communication network that connected hegemony worlds was severed. Every government building was emptied of personnel and equipment. Every military command center simply stopped existing. Within a month, the Hegemony Coalition government had effectively vanished. Without communications or central command, the various species that made up the coalition began making their own decisions. Some chose to surrender to human forces. Others declared independence and asked for protection from Earth, not the reptilian saurian people, who had been forced to join the hegemony 50 years earlier, sent a delegation to Earth. "We never wanted this war," their ambassador explained to the Terran Federation Council. "Our people were conquered and forced to fight. We want peace with humanity." Similar delegations arrived from 6 other species that had been part of the hegemony coalition. It became clear that many of the coalition's member races had been held together by fear rather than loyalty. But the humans weren't finished. Admiral Chun had one more target: the military leaders who had created the culture that led to attacking a hospital ship. She began what history would later call the night raids. Human special forces teams appeared without warning on dozens of hegemony worlds. They didn't attack civilian areas or cause collateral damage. Instead, they surgically removed specific individuals from their homes and brought them to face trial for war crimes. General Thakmer, who had written the military doctrine that called medical ships legitimate targets in total war, was taken from his private estate on Hegemony Prime. Admiral Sekven, who had trained young officers that mercy is weakness, was captured from his vacation home on a distant colony world. Each raid was perfectly planned and executed. The humans would appear, take only their target, and disappear again within minutes. No guards were killed, no buildings were damaged, no innocent people were harmed. But the message was clear. Nowhere in the galaxy was safe for those who had supported attacking healers. The psychological effect on the remaining hegemony leadership was devastating. They realized that the humans could reach anyone, anywhere, at any time. The technology that had kept them in power for decades was useless against human capabilities they had never imagined. 1 year after the destruction of the Nightingales, Grace, the last remnants of the Hegemony Coalition government, officially surrendered. The war was over, but the galaxy had changed forever. Admiral Chun stood in the memorial hall on Earth, looking at a wall covered with the names of everyone who had died aboard the hospital ship. Dr. Elena Vasquez's name was at the top of the list, followed by Captain Torres and 8,000 other medical personnel who had died trying to save lives. "Admiral," President Chun said as she joined her at the memorial wall, "the Zephyrian Council is asking if we plan to keep our expanded military active. They're worried about human intentions." Admiral Chun touched Dr. Vasquez's name on the wall. "Tell them we're returning to our previous force levels. We never wanted to be a military superpower, Madam President. We built these capabilities to protect ourselves and our principles. Now that the threat is gone, we can go back to building hospitals instead of warships. And if someone threatens our medical ships again?" Admiral Chun turned away from the wall. "Then they'll learn the same lesson the hegemony learned. Humans protect healers. We always have, and we always will." 6 months later, the first new human hospital ship launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. It was named the UHMS Elena Vasquez, and it carried the most advanced medical equipment in the galaxy. On its hull, painted in letters large enough to be seen from orbit, were the words, "In memory of those who chose to heal." The ship's first mission was to provide medical aid to refugee camps on former hegemony worlds, where beings displaced by the war were still struggling to rebuild their lives. The crew included humans, Zephyrians, reformed hegemony personnel, and members of 12 other species. Dr. James Kim, the ship's chief medical officer, walked through the halls of the Elena Vasquez on its maiden voyage. The corridors looked exactly like those of the Nightingale's Grace, with the same white walls and Red Cross symbols that had marked human medical vessels for over a century. In the children's ward, young beings from half a dozen species played together while recovering from injuries. In the surgical bays, human doctors worked alongside alien colleagues to save lives. In the rehabilitation centers, former enemies helped each other learn to walk again. It was exactly what Dr. Elena Vasquez would have wanted. But there was one difference between this hospital ship and its predecessor. Hidden throughout the Elena Vasquez were defensive systems that could protect the ship from any attack. Stealth generators that could make it invisible. Shield systems that could deflect the most powerful weapons. And if all else failed, enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The humans had learned their lesson too. They would continue to heal, continue to show mercy, continue to save lives regardless of species or allegiance. But they would never again allow healers to die defenseless in the darkness between the stars. As the Elena Vasquez jumped into hyperspace toward its first mission, a message was broadcast on all galactic frequencies. It was a recording of Dr. Elena Vasquez's final transmission from the dying Nightingale's grace. Our compassion is our strength. Our mercy is our power. They can destroy this ship, but they cannot destroy what we represent. The message ended with new words, added by the Terran Federation Council.